So in this video, I want to introduce the arrow operator so that we have that down before we move on to the classes lesson. Previously, we talked about the dot operator, which is also a member access operator, and you'll use that when you have an instance or an object of a struct or a class, for example. But in the case of the arrow operator, we are going to use that with pointers to classes or structs. You can see here, I have a comment, GameStats is a struct. Okay, so I'm not actually showing you the definition of the struct. We'll look at the definition of the struct in an upcoming example, but here I declare a pointer to that type. So I pointer to a GameStats, and I call that game. And then I use the new operator to create a new object on the heap, new GameStats. So how do we access the members, so the member functions or the variables of that object that is now on the heap? Well, of course, we cannot access it directly. The object doesn't actually have a name such as X or something like that. It's on the heap and we have to sort of indirectly access it using a pointer. So one way of accessing those members is you can dereference it. You can dereference the pointer, and then you can do dot and then access the member. An important thing here is that the dot operator has a higher precedence than the star operator. And what this means is we're going to have to place the dereferencing between brackets, okay, between parentheses, so that we force that computation to happen first. So first we do the dereferencing, and that is essentially going to get or fetch the object in memory that that pointer is pointing to, right? So we fetch that, then we can do the dot operator and then access some member, in this case just some function, get current level as an example. So it's easy to make a mistake with this, to leave out the parentheses or something like that. So what we can do instead is we can use the arrow operator, and that is done with the hyphen sign or the minus and then the greater than symbol, and that sort of gives us an arrow, right? So you do the pointer name and then the arrow operator, and in that way you can sort of indirectly access the members of that object that is on the heap. Okay, I have a quick example, struct GameStats. I just have an integer here which I initialize to 3, and then I have a function get current level, and that simply returns the current level, which again is set to 3 by default. In main, I go and create a new object on the heap. So I have a pointer to type GameStats, which I call the game. I use new to create the object on the heap. What type of object do we want to create on the heap? Well, a type of GameStats. Okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use this getCurrentLevel function, and I'm just going to print out what that returns. It should return 3, as I mentioned. I dereference this pointer. It's going to return an object. What object is it going to return? This object right here that it's going to create on the heap, right? So it will return that or fetch that, and now we are working with that directly. Then we do the member access operator dot, and whatever member we want to access, in this case a function, the function get current level. And we get 3. I'll do this in a different way. Game. Now I would like to note something here. Often in Visual Studio you can just press dot. So instead of doing hyphen and then the greater than, what you can do is dot, and then as you select whichever one you want, press tab, and you will see that will sort of convert that dot operator to the correct operator, in this case the arrow operator, because again this is a pointer. So just another quick tip for you that may speed up your typing. Now just make sure that you do get the correct operator in the end, the arrow operator, and then we do the function call or the member. So that is equivalent to what we had before. We get 3 printed out. So of course this does not just apply to pointers to objects on the heap. It also applies when you have an object. So here I have the variable game, which is of type GameStats. Now here I have a pointer to a type of GameStats, which is called pointer, and I use the address of operator to get the address of that game variable. Here I do console output again. So again I'm using this sort of syntax instead of the referencing pointer or the PTR pointer, and then doing dot and then the member. So again, instead of doing that, I do the arrow operator. So in this case we can also use the arrow operator. It's not just with pointers to dynamic objects. You'll see that this works fine. Alright, so this was a quick introduction to the arrow operator. At this point, we have discussed two operators. Okay, so when you use the instance of the object directly, then use the dot operator to access the members. When you have to access it indirectly because you have a pointer, then use the arrow operator.